Hi, I'm Pam Fox at pamfox.org, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about 3 different nighttime practices that you can try that may or may not help minimize acid reflux and that may or may not help you get a better night's sleep. So remember that I am not a doctor. If you want to learn more about my credentials, you can check out the About Me tab at my website, pamfox.org. And these are not remedies for acid reflux. They are just ways to support and promote healing. Hi, Diana. By minimizing the amount of reflux that you have so that the tissues can have a chance to heal. But they are not an effective remedy for GERD. And they certainly aren't they're not any kind of remedy for a hiatal hernia. But these are things that you can try that will give you relief, and again, will give the tissues a chance to heal by minimizing the amount of exposure to acid. All right, so a lot of these, many of you have already heard of and implement. If you're doing any of these things and they're working for you, make sure you comment below for others who are watching. There are new people joining the groups and joining my viewership every day, people who are newly diagnosed, so I like to go over some of these fundamentals occasionally. So the first one is sleeping on your left side, and what I want to do in this video is not only give these 3 tips on how to minimize reflux, but also to explain why they may work and also why they may not work. So the first one again is sleeping on your left side. So I'm just going to draw a picture here of a stomach. Okay, so when I stream live, everything is reversed, so you have to keep that in mind, but it doesn't really matter. This is just a picture of a healthy stomach that is located underneath the diaphragm and the esophagus that's coming up like this. I'm going to redraw that because I didn't quite center it accurately. Okay. All right, so here we have the stomach and the esophagus and the diaphragm and of course the LES, the lower esophageal sphincter. Okay, so when the stomach is, let's say it's half full of food, like that, in a normal healthy stomach, this lower esophageal sphincter clamps down tight and keeps the contents in the stomach where it belongs. So now I'm going to draw a stomach with a hiatal hernia. Oops. I need to get a board behind me so you guys can see what I'm doing, but we'll make do with what we've got here. Okay, so in the case of a hiatal hernia, we have a portion of the stomach below the diaphragm and a portion of the stomach above the diaphragm. And again, the esophagus comes up and straight up like this. And so now in this case, we have the contents in the stomach here, but, and this is important, we also are going to have contents in the stomach here. It's essentially like you have 2 stomachs. So the food comes into this portion of your stomach that's now up here in the chest cavity, and it has to go through like an hourglass and make its way into the abdominal cavity, right? And so it's kind of a slow process coming through into the stomach. And so then up here, your lower esophageal sphincter here, because this stomach just simply, because it's in the chest cavity, and remember I talked about this before, within the chest cavity we have high and low pressure with every breath we take, right? We exhale, the lungs deflate, the diaphragm rises up, increases low volume and high pressure. And so we have a lot of pressure on this little guy right here. And so a little bit of food, a little bit of acid, a little bit of air, anything that gets trapped in there, this lower esophageal sphincter, this valve right here, its job is to open up and to release that in the form of a belch, in the form of reflux, to relieve that pressure. Okay, so this is hiatal hernia. and this is acid reflux rising up into the esophagus. So now let's turn this and imagine that we're lying on our right side. So now I'm just gonna clear that out. So now we're sleeping, we're lying down on the right side, which is what we don't want to do. Okay, so now I've turned this, so now I'm sleeping on my right side. So now my stomach looks like this. And let's say it's half full of food, of digestive juices, chyme, whatever's in there. And now we have gravity working against us because the contents are here, and they're gonna move downward just because of gravity and into here, which is the esophagus, right? And when we have acid in the esophagus, we get heartburn, we have deterioration and injury of the esophageal tissues. And so, again, you know, in a healthy individual, this lower esophageal sphincter would not have any pressure on it because it'd be, you know, down here under the diaphragm, and it would keep the contents of the stomach regardless of what position you lie in, okay? So I'm gonna turn this again, and we're gonna lie on our left side now, and I'm gonna show you the difference. Remember, when you're on your right side, gravity is working against you. So now we're going to turn this so that we're lying on our left side, and now gravity is going to work towards our advantage. So now we have the stomach, the contents of the stomach. Okay, I hope this is making sense to you guys. So now we're lying on our left side, and now what is the esophagus doing? It's going upward, right? So we have the contents of the stomach, and even if the lower esophageal sphincter opens up to relieve this pressure, which it may do, which is why some people still have reflux at night, even though they try these things. It's just, there's just a lot of too much pressure and a weak lower esophageal sphincter. But you can still try these things and see if they work for you, if they give you a little bit of relief, which you want, because you don't want acid pooling in the esophagus while you sleep. So here in this position on the left side, the acid has to rise up. It has to travel up. And so we're just using gravity towards our advantage because it's going to be harder for that acid to travel up, and it's going to be easier for it to travel down, right? So that's why we sleep on our left side. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about, and you probably have already thought about this, it's kind of obvious. If we have an empty stomach at night, that's going to eliminate the possibility of anything rising up in the first place, right? So now we go to sleep and the stomach is empty. That means there's no acid in here to rise up into the tissues at all. And so that's why it's so important, and many doctors are very much on board with this. And if you get diagnosed with hiatal hernia or GERD, they will tell you, don't eat at least 5 hours before you go to bed. So why is that? Well, it takes anywhere from 2 to 6 hours for your stomach to fully empty the contents into the intestinal tract after you've eaten. 2 to 6 hours. It just depends on what you ate and how much you ate. But when digestion takes place, it turns that food, it mixes with the acid, and it turns it into chyme. So now we have a stomach full of chyme, and it's still very acidic. It is going to remain acidic until it comes into the intestinal tract. So as long as that chyme is being able to rise up or regurgitate into the esophagus, it is going to cause burning. So it's really, really important that if you experience reflux at night or first thing in the morning, if you have a lot of burning in your esophagus or your throat when you wake up in the morning, that means that acid is rising up and it's pooling or sitting on your esophagus. And so if you can try to eat earlier, then you're going to reduce the risk of having any acid in the stomach in the first place, so that there isn't any acid rising up into the esophageal tissues. Now, there is an exception to this, and that would be, well, I shouldn't say exception, but if you have what's known as delayed stomach emptying. So that's where the contents of the stomach take even longer to move into the intestinal tract, delayed stomach emptying. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in my next video when I talk about the importance of your gut health, the microbiome, the bacteria, and all of that, and how that correlates with delayed stomach emptying. But this is something that you can try. You can definitely try to eat earlier. Don't eat any food at least 5 hours before you go to sleep to try to minimize the amount of acid secretion that's and the amount of chyme that is in the stomach. Okay, which leads me to the third tip, and that is sleeping in an elevated position. So this is a big one. This is the one that all doctors agree people should be trying to minimize acid exposure, and that is to raise up the head of your bed so that your esophagus is higher than your stomach. And again, we're just using gravity towards our advantage. So if the stomach is down here and the esophagus is up here, then it's got to really work harder in order to rise up into the esophagus. And so you can put 2x4s or bricks or concrete bricks underneath the head of your bed in order to raise it up 4 to 6 inches. A lot of people swear that this is a total game changer. You can also, get one of those mechanical beds that just, raise up and down. You can do that, or you can buy a pillow wedge. These are made specifically for people with reflux. It's just a nice, comfortable pillow that you sit on, and it just helps you sleep in that reclining position, so that your esophagus is higher than your stomach. So those are my tips for today. If you guys have any further comments or questions, you can post those in the comment section below. And until next time, I hope you all have a lovely day, and thank you so much for watching.